So, I was talking to Anne Cameron the other day in Dublin. She is my computer internet guru, among other things, and also a remarkable astrologer and friend. And she was helping me fix my printer. I have no capacity for dealing with the technological realm we all live in. And I used to be totally frustrated by that. I'm still a little bit frustrated by it, but I have learned to be patient, calm down, look for help. Not a bad scenario. Patience, looking for help, asking for help, which often arrives. But much more arrived than that, because we ended up not only fixing my printer, but having just this remarkable dialogue about everything. But the word that cropped up so prominently in our talk was the word Maya. We all know the word Maya, all of us who study Oriental religion philosophy, as the essence of illusion that defines the world, and that we are all caught up in or addicted to or blinded by every day. We wake up into it, we breathe into it, we live it out, we give it all of our energy, all of our attention, and it dominates almost every human life. You see a picture of it behind me, in a way, the wheel of life, the wheel of death. The term Maya, which is a Sanskrit word, I believe, carries with it some Hindu tradition, which is the idea that there's a creator of all of this called Brahma. There is a preserver of all of this called Vishnu, and there is a destroyer of all of this called Shiva. And they, as a triumvirate, in a way define the natural world, and they define Maya. This is all created. It's preserved for a period of time, no guarantee how long, and then it is destroyed. Many of us are deeply invested in the creation. We like being created, or we probably wouldn't be here. And if we're here against our will, we're here in it. Something is preserving us. It has to do with wanting to eat, sleep, procreate, have fun, fall in love, make a living, maybe get rich, get known, be really powerful, or just have a good time. Or maybe just be here and parade around our beliefs and our ideas and try to make the world serve us. We all have a different attitude in our preservation of self. The preserver, Vishnu, preserves the larger world and also the personal world, the individual ego-minded world, which most of us somehow feel totally committed to. However, there is the possibility in human existence of what I call the initiation, there must be other words for it, into something bigger, larger. And it is often a moment of suffering that you touch a wellspring of feeling, of unexpected awareness of something way beyond you that somehow encompasses humanity. It isn't just you separate. It's the collective. And that initiation can be very powerful. It can actually take you into an experience of godlike consciousness, just presence, awareness, higher consciousness, this idea of eternity, infinite time, space, all of these ideas, this awakening can expose you to it. Once you are exposed to that, you have a different view of Maya. You see it much more as a strange thing that it's often called, which is illusion or delusion. But it is clearly impermanent. It rises up, it does its dance, and it goes away. You, as part of it, rise up, do your dance, and you're going to go away too. People who awaken to this larger idea of something greater, which you can also call vision of God, awareness of God, awareness of the infinite, live Maya differently than people who have not had that initiation. People who don't know it sometimes gravitate toward it through belief. I talked about that last week a lot. What do you believe in? What's the narrative or the story that runs your life? Is it a religious story? For many people, it is. For many people, because none of us quite understand or know what this is that we're in, the magnitude of the infinite is so great that trying to hold it with our mind and brain is hard. And yet people have tried and they've sold us their stories. So the Christian story, the Hindu story, the Buddhist story, they're all very powerful stories. And for people who haven't awakened to it, they have a belief in it or a faith in it, and it drives their lives. Often it drives their lives in a very funny way. It seems to give advantage to us as separate entities, as individuals. And the illusion of all of that is, if I am in touch with these powerful forces, I become bigger, better, nobler, perhaps more powerful, more dynamic in the world for good or for evil. And if you look around you, you can see it's pretty evenly divided. I don't look further than the last election. 70 million people voted for one president, 70, a couple more million voted for another president. That's just America. Very different views of what the world is, how it should work, how it should function. And these opposing views, and they often are very much opposite, have to do with me at the center, me and mine, often influenced by and supported by religious belief, or us together, the communion of souls, the gathering, the community, the larger good over the private good. And a lot of our teachers in the world have come to teach us, and I've talked about this quite a bit now, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Essence of Christian theology. Kindness, goodness, essence of Buddhist philosophy. The Dalai Lama says kindness is his entire teaching. These are all wonderful views. There is a danger, of course, in also thinking that if I become kind and good and loving and all of that, I will benefit from that. That is a lesser view, in a sense, of where spiritual work gets us, where that woundedness that showed us the infinite takes us. The glimmer of the infinite is not to make you special, not to say, I have seen the truth. It's to make you one with the truth, to make you one with all that is. That's its primary drive, to take you and separate you from your own sense of primary importance and make you part of the whole. And that's the real spiritual journey. And those of you who listen to these talks those of you who attend these classes, are here practicing as a community how to allow the infinite, the eternal, to impact this daily experience of Maya and illusion. And what's happening right at this juncture in our lives is probably for us as a generation or a group of generations, the most difficult Maya experience we have encountered. My parents had depression and World War II enter their lives as Maya. My father had to stop everything he was doing and go into the army and possibly die to fight for goodness and democracy and all of the things America is supposed to stand for. My mother's father had to sell his house and move into a smaller space. There was so much transformation and change caused by Maya, and everyone had to adapt to it in one way or another. We of the later generation had this really smooth ride. Most of us who came into the world in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even, had this incredible period of peace in the world. Yes, not everywhere. Many wars were going on. But I often describe World War II as a war fought and perceived it in the movie theater on a huge screen, mostly in black and white in the beginning, later in color. And war was a big image. The Vietnam War, which came much later, we watched on television on a screen usually about the size of our computer. And that war was tiny. It didn't fill the space because it was contained differently. Now, most of our karmic lives, the outer world, Maya, comes at us through these tiny screens. If you watch the evening news, it's like headlines of one horror, this horror, and a commercial about a disease that's probably got a medication that will cause all sorts of problems as well as help you. And so we're living in this world of stuff going on all the time. And those of you who come here are trying to do something different, which is recognize that world of Maya and its power, because it has great power, and trying to find through our woundedness or our awakening or our higher intelligence, something that permeates all of this that is greater than Maya. And what is that? What is that? Well, every religion talks about that. Every spiritual practice says, what is that? And has names for it. God, higher consciousness, presence, love. Find a name. The name is important, and how you relate to it's important. But what's really essential is that you begin to understand that this Maya, this realm of stuff, which right now is really getting dark and ugly, and I don't mean to over dramatize it. I have, for the first time in my life, actually turned off the news because I could not go there. I could not watch it. Even headline news was beyond my sort of empathetic capacity. Suffering on the level I was watching was unbearable. So I just stopped. And in talking to Anne the other day, and the word Maya coming up, I just said, oh, of course. I can be as involved in Maya and illusion as I want. It's real. It could actually take over my life. It could actually force me into poverty. It could force me into war. It could do all sorts of things. Maya is very powerful. It's very powerful, but it is happening in an arena of the infinite and the eternal. And you need to remember that. As horrible and difficult as life can get, and as the world can get, it is happening in something greater. And if you have any access point to that greater reality, that is, if you will, salvation. Because it reminds you, you are not just this tiny little person that is born through Brahma, lived through by Vishnu and preserved by Vishnu and destroyed by Shiva. It's not just that. Those exist within this larger context that goes on, I believe. And in many ways, it's for me beyond belief, it's experiential. It goes into the eternal. And that eternal is felt in different ways, but let's put it in the simplest terms possible. It's felt as love, kindness, and goodness, and awareness. This is how we feel it. We experience it in those ways. And that, for me, is what arises when Maya gets too strong. I simply go in and find love. It's not hard to find. I've been practicing for 50 years, and it did take practice. Rudy taught me how to go inside. It wasn't that hard. I had resistance, but it wasn't that hard. There are these openings to the within, and the within draws you toward the infinite and the eternal. If you go in, it takes you, it warms you, it comforts you, it loves you, and you go, ah. You are able, by making that journey inward, to survive Maya, to transcend Maya. Now, let me say, as I have said quite a lot weekly because of some personal pain and suffering that I've been going through, you can get lost even when you know that Maya is an illusion. Pain is not illusory. It does not feel illusory. And when it hits you, all of your belief systems can get thrown and destroyed. They can be out the window. And what do? Well, you hold on to faith, belief, and practice. And you do everything you can, especially in periods of great suffering, to go back in as deeply as you can and touch what you love. Where is that love? If you're lucky, you might be able to name it. It might be a person. It might have the name Blanche. For me, it does. Joshua, Ari, Evan, Talia, Elijah. These are simple names for me. My grandchildren, my children, my wife. I can go to my parents. That love sparks an opening. It touches the infinite. You all have that. You all have somewhere to go. And if you don't have somewhere to go to touch love and the infinite, that's your work, guys. That's your practice. That's what you have to set out to do. What do I love? Where does love arise? Finding love is the core. You can call it finding higher consciousness and enlightenment and illumination and all of that. Wonderful names, but they feel like love. And they manifest as love and or kindness or goodness in the world. And you start to see and feel the world differently. You look at Maya with great empathy. You look at people whose lives are being totally uprooted, destroyed, the awfulness of what can happen in the human arena. And you feel nothing but love and compassion for everyone. And the thing you can do, because you cannot hug everybody in Afghanistan, because you cannot reach out to all the people suffering in all the countries of the world, or even in your own city, where can you reach out? You can reach out to anyone who arises in your presence. Anyone. If someone is in front of you, as Rudy would say, they're yours. They're yours to be kind to, be good to, and love. And if you have resistance to that, which you may, that's your work. Take a breath, ask for help to surrender inside, and find the part of you that can be good, that can love, can reach out, can be kind to the other. And what's really interesting is the journey from your doing that to the journey where it happens by itself. And one of the things I have witnessed in my own journey over the course of time, and the loss of the Bruce idea, which took place 10 years ago, is that this thing is itself kindness and goodness, and it gets delivered by itself. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is be alive, show up to life, surrender, be available, and this love and goodness and kindness will flow of their own energy, their own intuition, their own nature. And you will be the vehicle through which they penetrate the world. Now, if that's not happening, you have work to do. Go deeper, dig down, find that spot because it's in you, because you are eternal, and that eternal energy, which is love, will find its way up and out and through you. And if it doesn't, then it becomes an obstructed space that you will have to work with to break down. This particular meditation helps to do that. It breaks down the resistance to being a good person. It breaks down the resistance to being kind, to being loving. That's all it does. It breaks it down. It loves you so that you can love others. That's really what it does. That's our job. So in the last 2 months, I have had so much pain and struggle because of my back, and I've told you all the stories. And for a quick update, I am now going to have surgery in about 10 days on my lower back. Luckily, I think it's an outpatient surgery, which is amazing. It's a 1-inch microscopic surgery into my spine. Kind of extraordinary. I thought it would be, one of those 2 weeks in the hospital. Not at all. And I have said yes to this hopefully helpful situation. But during the months of difficulty and suffering, everything I'm teaching you now has been threatened and challenged because pain is so challenging. And I respect pain, and I respect the drama, and I respect Shiva and what it's like to be taken apart as a human being. And I respect it because I know it's going to happen to every one of us. There is no one safe from Shiva and destruction, degeneration, the loss of your physical, biological life, and potentially, and what's so disturbing in this moment, is the loss of all life, planetary life. I mean, no one has faced that before, really. And now we're looking at that. Now, if you want to talk about Maya and the bigness of illusion, look at that. Look at end of world and go, oh, and all of what that does to the psyche. If there's ever a time to go, take it in, get quiet, go to the eternal, look at all of this. The universe is very, very, very big, vast, infinite, beyond anything we can comprehend. Life arises in that space, whether it's just on the earth or wherever, however it works. The thing which gave us life and birth is not something I believe that ever dies. It is infinite and eternal. I have tasted that space. I have stepped into that space. I suspect many of you have tasted it and stepped into it. That's what keeps you going. You have to go beyond Maya. You have to go beyond it. I have fallen in love with 2 television shows, and I'm going to mention them for a moment because they speak to all of this. One of them, George Subkoff suggested that I watch. It's called Fantastic Fungi, or Fungi, if that's your way of saying it. Fantastic Fungi is the way they say it. And it is a unbelievable documentary. I think it's like on Netflix or one of those programs. And it's nothing but watching the communication of the underworld, if you will, the roots of our trees, of our mushrooms, of our plants, speaking to one another, dialoguing with one another, taking care of the destruction that occurs on the surface, eating it up, finding nourishment in destruction. It is a sense of global awareness in which we are very small, very small. And I recommend it if you want a visual experience of Maya at work and higher intelligence at work at the same time. Very powerful, and go to it. The other one, and I don't usually sell television programs, but this one hit me. because somebody said this is a show about goodness, and I'm very committed to that idea. It's called Ted Lasso. Some of you may have watched it, some of you have not watched it. It is a show about goodness. It's about a good person and what it's like to be a good person in the world, where you are that person, whether you want to be or not, whether it's a natural outflowing of you or not. It shows you what it means to be good in the world, to speak the truth of goodness, to share goodness with people, to bring that energy into any circumstance. And I would watch that show episode by episode. I've only seen the first season. I can't speak to the second one. But I had such an emotional response to watching goodness as a narrative on television speak to me and say pretty much what I'm trying to say to you. But it does it through drama and narrative, which I think is a great way to teach people. And it just shows you the simplicity of a constancy of kindness in the world. If you can bring that to the table, if you can act on that, if you can make others more important than you have found the path to freeing yourself of Maya. Because it's part of Maya, but it transcends it. It alters its nature. It changes the makeup of the illusion. It makes it what it wants to be, what it was born to be. That's really the feeling that I have, that the world that created us, which feels like love, that feels like nourishment, that feels like kindness, that feels like contentment, that world which brought us into being, maybe it knew that we would all start to get selfish and self-centered and egocentric and want only for ourselves as opposed to everybody. Maybe it knew that and wanted to watch itself manifested and created the circle of life. Maybe not. But I will tell you, the path out of all of that is to go back to what brought it into being in the first place. And the simple word is love. And how does that work, and how does it put itself in the world? As kindness and goodness. It's so simple. So simple. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, Christ was lucky he gave a Sermon on the Mount, and that was the end of it. I do this every week, and I don't know what more to say. It's like, here you go. This is it. This is the statement. Trust me, and I do say this, I think, pretty regularly. If you get the message and you're done with it, I'm fine. I don't need to keep saying it, or you don't need to keep coming. But I know it's a hard one to get to penetrate, to live it, to be it, to do it. I know the reminder is valuable, and I have enough people write me and say, please, please. And I have enough people write me to say that these talks are speaking to them. So that encourages me to keep it going, because many of us right now are sick of the world, sick of what's happening, scared, anxiety-ridden, stressed. Those who pay attention to the noise can be really affected by it. And I see that everywhere, and I hear it from people all the time. And all I can present as an alternative to the fearfulness that's being raised and may in fact infiltrate all of the world around us for years and decades to come, the only alternative to that is go back inside, take a breath, ask for help, to surrender, to open, to be present, to allow, to be, to accept, and let this luminous quality, this light, this love, this kindness rise up in the face of Maya and dispel at least the next room, the 5 feet in front of you that's dark. Send the light into as many people as you can, and send it to yourself, because you can forget that you are part of the equation. Be the light. Send the light out there. Be the love. Be the kindness all day long. It's essential. If you do that, watch Ted Lasso and see what happens. It's so simple. You know, people change. People are impacted by your love. People are impacted by your goodness. It's not a big deal. None of this is that hard. The only hard thing is when you buy into Maya. When you buy into it entirely and you forget the eternal, it's hard. And it is hard for many people, and you can help them. You can help them. And it starts with you. It doesn't start with the next person. I mean, it can, but you can take charge. You can be that which changes the world. You don't have to go out there and pick it. And right now, we don't have to get in uniforms and fight. That happens, But right now, be the goodness, be the kindness, be the love that changes everything. It's the eternal speaking to the Maya, to the finite, to the changeable. And you have the capacity. You have the ability, especially because you're here, because we're part of a community that reinforces this, to be reminded week by week by week, get out there and be a nice person. Do the best you can. Love the person you're with, love the people you're not with. Reach out, make the phone call. Send an email to someone you haven't spoken to. I can't tell you how amazing that is. I do it all the time. You know, I just say, I think I should call somebody. And I did yesterday with somebody, and she said, you have no idea how important your call was at this moment. Well, no, I had no idea. I had no idea. But of course, it makes complete sense. That's how it works. Do that thing. Be that person. You know, you may think, oh, come on, why should I bother with that? Where's this thought coming from? It's coming from love and the infinite and the knowledge that people need what you have to give. You have to know to do it. You have to know you have the capacity to do it. And if you can do it, you will be in service of the infinite and the eternal being, which loves you beyond understanding, and to which I believe we return in glory or not glory. I don't know how we return to it, but I think we return to it as like the way you feel when your mother walks in the room and you are, you know, 6 months old, and she picks you up and she hugs you and you feel like, I think that's what it's like. That's what it's like. That's what we need to feel. We need to feel grateful that somebody once did that to us. We need to bring that to everybody. That hug, that need is fulfilled by us. We can all do it. Your job is to do it. And if you can jump into that, great. If you can't, come here every week and I will until you finally go, oh, I can do it. And it will change. It will change everything. Thank you. Any questions about goodness, kindness, and love, and eternity and Maya? No. Okay. Well, I'm fine with that. Thank you guys for coming. Next week is LA, or in San Francisco area. The week after that, I have my operation. And one of the things I see in these endless forms they send you is not to sit for more than a half hour at a time. I don't know how that will impact class, but I will let you know. There may be a class where I sit and stand or something like that. If I teach, or I may put it aside for a week or two or whatever they tell me to do. But whatever it is, I think this is the right thing that I'm doing. You know, it's got risks, they say, involved with it, but I really, really believe that this is another moment of trust and belief and surrender. And hopefully I'll be much more available to everybody for a longer period than I would have been if I ignored this. So hopefully it will work for all of our benefit. Thank you for coming. I will see the California bunch next week, and I'll see all of you in 2 weeks. Love you.